Early September 1964 painted the forests of Cisco Grove, California, with the first colors of autumn, although the days were still warm. The air was filled with the resinous scent of pines and the smell of decaying leaves. On September 4th, a group of friends, including 28-year-old Donald Shrum, decided to spend the weekend actively engaging in bow and arrow hunting. For Shrum, an avid hunter and nature lover, it was an excellent opportunity to test his skills and enjoy the wilderness of the Sierra Nevada mountains. They spent the entire day in the forest, tracking game, talking, and enjoying the thrill of the hunt. But towards evening, as the sun began to set, casting a golden crimson light across the forest, Shrum realized he had fallen behind his companions. The forest in this area was dense, the trails confusing, and he got lost. The sun set quickly, and darkness began to envelop the trees. Aware of the dangers of the night forest, wild animals, and the cold, Shrum decided not to risk it and make a safe camp for the night. He chose a sturdy, sprawling pine tree with convenient branches and, using his survival skills, deftly climbed it, creating a makeshift shelter several meters above the ground. He hoped his friends would notice his absence and start searching in the morning, or that he himself would find his way at dawn. Making himself comfortable on a wide branch and wrapping himself in his jacket, he was starting to doze off when a strange light caught his attention. It was a bright, white, pulsating light moving among the trees lower down the slope. It moved strangely, not smoothly, but in zigzags, sometimes dipping almost to the ground, then rising again. Shrum's first thought was hopeful. A helicopter. My friends must have called rescuers or the sheriff to search. Overcome with joy and relief, he completely forgot caution. He jumped down from his tree refuge onto the soft pine needles below and, taking out several signal flares he always carried just in case, began launching them one after another. Bright flashes soared above the trees, illuminating the forest and, as he hoped, attracting the helicopter pilot's attention. His actions had an effect. The glowing object changed trajectory and began moving slowly in his direction. It approached, still gliding silently between the trees. Shrum stood in the clearing, waving his arms and waiting for rescue. The object flew closer and stopped about 50 meters away from him, hovering a few meters above the ground. And then Shrum realized his mistake. His blood ran cold. It wasn't a helicopter. No rotor blades, no engine sound. Hovering before him was something entirely different. A dome-shaped or disc-shaped craft with a smooth surface glowing white. It wasn't very large, but its shape and complete silence were utterly alien, unearthly. Panic began to rise from the depths of his soul. He didn't know what it was, but instinct screamed, "Danger!" Without hesitation, he scrambled back to his pine tree and, using all his agility, climbed it again, hiding in the dense branches, trying to become invisible. He sat in the tree, heart pounding wildly, breath catching in his throat. The glowing object hung motionless in the same spot, illuminating the clearing with a deathly white light. A minute passed, then another, and then, to his indescribable astonishment and horror, he noticed movement below, at the base of the tree. From the darkness of the forest, from behind the bushes, 3 figures approached his pine tree. 2 of them vaguely resembled humans, humanoids of short stature, dressed in dark, tight-fitting suits. Their movements were smooth, but somehow too deliberate, non-human. Facial features were impossible to discern in the dim light. The third figure was completely different. It was taller than the humanoids, more massive, and moved with mechanical precision. Its outline was angular. Its surface seemed metallic and gleamed dully in the UFO's light. This creature most resembled a robot from science fiction films. Shrum's amazement instantly turned into wild panic as this strange trio approached his tree and stopped directly beneath him. They clearly knew he was there. After a short pause, the humanoids and the robot grabbed the tree trunk and began to shake it. The pine tree swayed violently, branches creaked, needles rained down. They were clearly trying to shake him out of the tree, to get him. Shrum clung to the branch with a death grip, praying it would hold. The shaking stopped as suddenly as it began. The robot took a step forward, its metallic head, or whatever served that function, tilted upwards toward Shrum. Then, from an opening resembling a mouth, a stream of thick white vapor or gas was expelled. The vapor quickly rose, enveloping the branch Shrum was sitting on. He smelled a sharp, unpleasant, suffocating odor, similar to ether or chloroform. His head spun, his vision blurred, and he plunged into darkness. He awoke to a sharp cold and his own coughing. He was still sitting on the same branch, but felt terrible, nauseous, dizzy, weak all over. Below, at the base of the tree, the same trio still stood, the two humanoids and the robot. They looked up, waiting. Fear and despair gave Shrum strength. Rage mixed with panic. He decided to fight back. Fumbling in his pockets, he found a box of matches. Without a second thought, he struck a match, and when it flared, threw it down, aiming at one of the figures. The lit match landed near the robot. It sharply jumped back, as if frightened by the fire. The humanoids also stepped back. Encouraged by this, Shrum lit another match and threw it. The creatures jumped back again. He continued throwing lit matches at them until the box was empty. It was a pathetic defense, but it gave him some respite and a sense of fighting back. But his adversaries weren't retreating. When the matches ran out, they approached the tree again. Shrum frantically located his bow and quiver of arrows, which he had secured nearby. With trembling hands, he nocked an arrow, drew the string as much as the awkward position on the branch allowed, and shot almost point-blank downwards, aiming for the robot's chest. The arrow struck the metallic body with a dull thud, and a shower of bright sparks flew from the point of impact. The robot staggered but remained standing. The humanoids jumped back again. Shrum, encouraged that his weapon had at least some effect, quickly fired 2 more arrows. Each time upon hitting, or even narrowly missing, the creatures retreated, as if fearing the arrows or simply reacting to his aggressive actions. But the odds were against him. Another robot, identical to the first, emerged from the forest. Now there were 4 of them against one terrified man in a tree. One of the robots again directed a stream of white vapor at him. Shrum tried to dodge, cover his face, but the suffocating gas enveloped him again, and he lost consciousness once more. When he came to for the second time, the night was at its darkest. He felt even worse. His body ached, his head throbbed, and then his heart froze in terror. He saw the 2 humanoids slowly but surely climbing the tree trunk, gripping the branches with their dark hands. They were coming for him. Desperation gave him strength. He started yelling, cursing, throwing everything he could reach at them. Pine cones, pieces of bark, his knife, which bounced uselessly off one of them. He even tried to violently shake the branch he was sitting on, risking falling himself, just to throw off his pursuers. The humanoids temporarily retreated, slid down, but did not leave. And so it continued throughout the night. A waking nightmare. Periodically, the robots would spray him with the sleep-inducing gas. He would lose consciousness, regain it, find his enemies trying to reach him again, either climbing the tree or shaking it anew. He fought back as best he could, with arrows, until they ran out. Rocks, branches, shouts. He was on the verge of physical and nervous exhaustion, but the survival instinct drove him on. It seemed this terrifying night would never end. Finally, the sky in the east began to lighten. Pre-dawn twilight tentatively filtered through the dense canopy. And with the dawn, Shrum noticed there were more creatures below. Several more humanoids and possibly another robot had appeared. They stood in a semicircle at the base of the tree, watching him with their eerie eyes. It seemed the night's game of cat and mouse was coming to an end. Then, one of the robots released not just a stream of vapor towards him, but a huge, dense cloud of acrid smoke. It enveloped the entire tree, filling Shrum's lungs. He coughed, choking, and this time darkness engulfed him completely and for a long time. When he regained consciousness again, it was already daylight. The sun filtered through the branches. He found himself in an extremely uncomfortable and dangerous position, hanging upside down, miraculously caught by his belt buckle on a thick branch. Apparently, he had lost his balance after losing consciousness, and only the belt had saved him from falling from a significant height. His body ached unbearably. His mouth tasted foul. His clothes were torn. He managed, with difficulty, to pull himself up and sit on the branch. Looking around, he realized he was alone. Neither the UFO nor the strange creatures were under the tree. They had left with the dawn. Exhausted, dehydrated, on the verge of a nervous breakdown, he somehow climbed down from the tree. His legs wouldn't support him. He just sat on the ground, staring blankly ahead.